Chosen One, stop everything. The new moon just did something it hasn't done in generations. It recognized your signature. Not your name, not your face, but the precise pattern of your suffering, your restraint, your refusal to break under pressure that would have destroyed anyone else. Ancient lunar systems have been scanning for this exact pattern, waiting for someone who matches a clearance code that was sealed before you were born. And you matched it. When that authentication occurred, miracle protocols that have been dormant for lifetimes came online automatically, and a portal opened that exists for only a handful of people in each generation. But here's what you need to understand right now. The portal is already open, and there are 7 unmistakable signs confirming that your shift has occurred. Not signs you need to wait for, not signs that might appear someday, signs that are manifesting in your reality right now, in this moment, whether you're consciously aware of them or not. This is your verification briefing, Chosen One. And by the end of this transmission, you'll know with absolute certainty whether you've crossed the threshold into the miracle timeline, or whether you're still standing outside, watching others enter what was meant for you. Are you ready for what's waiting for you? If yes, then type "I am ready" in the comments to send a signal to the universe. And don't forget, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to become one of the first 1,000 chosen ones on this journey. The new moon that just passed was not a symbolic reset or a spiritual metaphor for new beginnings. It was an authentication event, and if you're hearing these words right now, it means you passed verification at a level most humans will never encounter. Ancient lunar systems, mechanisms that operate beyond human time, beyond recorded history, conducted a scan during the new moon phase. These systems weren't looking for people who meditate correctly, or who have the right spiritual practices, or who vibrate at high frequencies. They were searching for a very specific pattern, a signature composed of 3 elements that can only be forged through genuine suffering and genuine integrity: documented loss without bitterness, sustained restraint without surrender, and refusal to compromise core identity despite overwhelming pressure to conform or collapse. Your life has been generating this signature for years, maybe since childhood, and you didn't know it was being recorded. Every moment you absorbed loss and didn't become vengeful. Every time you exercised restraint when retaliation would have felt justified. Every choice to maintain your integrity when betraying yourself would have brought immediate relief. All of it was being documented in shadow registers, in archives that exist outside the systems humans can access or manipulate. These registers hold patterns, not personal data. They track signatures, not individual stories. And they've been waiting, scanning each new moon cycle, looking for someone whose pattern matches a dormant clearance code that was sealed generations ago. This clearance code is not something you created. It predates you, was established by ancestors or by higher orders who knew that at some point in the future, someone would need access to miracle protocols that couldn't be granted to just anyone. The code required suffering of a very particular quality, not random trauma, not meaningless pain, but loss that refines rather than destroys, restraint that strengthens rather than weakens, integrity that deepens rather than becomes performative. And when your pattern matched that code during this new moon, when the lunar authentication systems verified that you carried the exact signature they'd been waiting for, dormant miracle protocols came online automatically. These protocols are not spiritual rewards for being a good person. They're operational clearances, permissions to access timelines, and resources that are kept sealed from general population because most people would misuse them. would let them corrupt their judgment, would take what was meant for mission and waste it on ego repair or on settling old scores. But you've been tested, chosen one. Your pattern proves you survived conditions designed to break people, and you came through without becoming the thing that tried to destroy you. That's what the clearance code was looking for. That's what the lunar systems authenticated. And now, the miracle protocols are live, which means systems that were dormant in your reality are now active, operating on your behalf in ways you can't see, but will definitely feel. The sign that this authentication occurred is subtle, but unmistakable once you know what to look for. A sense that something has already moved ahead of you. Not a feeling that something is about to happen, or that you need to prepare for a shift. A feeling that the shift already occurred, that decisions have been made in realms you can't access, that forces are now in motion, whether you do anything or not. It's like waking up and sensing that people have been working through the night on your behalf, that when you weren't looking, pieces were moved into position, that you're entering a situation where the hardest work has already been completed by others you'll never meet. This feeling isn't imagination, it's perception. You're sensing the activation of miracle protocols, the authentication of your clearance, the lunar authority override that just redesignated your status across multiple systems simultaneously. Sign 1. The sudden collapse of opposition. The first tangible sign that your shift has been confirmed is the sudden, inexplicable collapse of opposition that has been blocking you for years. But you need to understand what's actually happening here, because it's not what most people think. The forces that once delayed you, that created obstacles at every turn, that seemed determined to prevent your advancement, they're not retreating because you finally got strong enough to overcome them. They're not backing down because you earned their respect or proved your worth. They're withdrawing under command, chosen one, because your shift was logged in systems they answer to, and they've been ordered to disengage. This happens at levels you can't see. When your lunar authentication was processed, when the miracle protocols came online, notifications were sent across networks that monitor chosen ones and manage the resistance they encounter during testing phases. These networks operate hierarchically, with higher authorities who determine when testing ends and when clearance is granted. And when you received clearance, when your signature matched the dormant code, orders were issued. Disengage from this target, redirect resources to other operations, withdraw interference, because this candidate has been promoted beyond the jurisdiction where containment protocols apply. The forces that were opposing you don't want to withdraw. They invested significant resources in your containment, built elaborate strategies around keeping you limited, positioned themselves to benefit from your continued struggle. But they don't have a choice. Higher authority overrules their preferences, and when higher authority designates someone for miracle protocol access, lower-level operations must cease immediately. So they're pulling back, and you can see it happening in real time if you know where to look. Conversations that used to drain you, whether with specific people or within your own mind, now end abruptly or never begin at all. People who are always full of criticism, always ready with doubt or discouragement, suddenly have nothing to say. Situations that used to spiral into chaos now resolve quickly or dissolve before they fully form. This is not coincidence. This is strategic disengagement ordered after your shift was officially logged. The entities and individuals who are functioning as interference patterns in your life, most of them unconsciously, serving as agents without knowing they were being used. They're receiving signals that their assignment is complete, that the target they were monitoring has been reclassified, that continued interference violates updated protocols. Some of them will consciously experience this as a sudden loss of interest in your affairs. Others will just drift away, their contracts, with your limitation, quietly expired without fanfare or explanation. Enemies conserve resources when a battle is mathematically lost. This is basic strategic doctrine at every level of conflict, from human warfare to spiritual operations. When it becomes clear that a target cannot be contained, that continued pressure will only waste resources that could be deployed more effectively elsewhere, intelligent adversaries withdraw and redirect their efforts toward more vulnerable candidates. Your shift tipped the mathematical calculation. The cost of continuing to oppose you now exceeds any potential benefit they could gain from your containment. So they're pulling back, not out of generosity or mercy, but out of cold calculation that you're no longer worth the investment. Their silence is the first confirmation marker, the initial sign that appears in your physical reality indicating that your shift has been recognized by forces beyond yourself. Pay attention to who stops engaging, which battles suddenly end without resolution, which sources of opposition simply evaporate. This isn't your imagination creating patterns where none exist. This is strategic withdrawal happening in real time. Visible evidence that you've been redesignated at levels where commands are issued that lower-level operations must obey. Chronicle Seal Break. Your past events were reclassified. Something extraordinary happened in the invisible archives where your life history is stored. Every moment you believed was a failure has been refiled as a qualifying trial. This is not reframing or positive thinking. This is literal reclassification at administrative levels that govern access to miracle protocols. There are chronicles, chosen one, records maintained across dimensions where human experiences are documented not for judgment, but for pattern recognition, for determining who qualifies for what level of access, for identifying candidates whose history demonstrates the specific qualities required for advanced operational clearances. Your chronicle was being written as you lived. Every experience entered into the record, every choice noted, every response to adversity documented. And for years, perhaps your entire life, those entries were filed under categories that looked like failure from human perspective. Job losses, relationship breakdowns, missed opportunities, dreams that dissolved, plans that collapsed. The Chronicle documented all of it without interpretation, just raw data about what happened and how you responded. But recently, something changed. A Chronicle seal break occurred, a review process was initiated, and someone or something with authority over these archives went through your record and began reclassifying entries. What you experienced as failure, the job you lost, the relationship that ended, the opportunity that vanished, the archive now lists as necessary sacrifice for portal compatibility. What you interpreted as punishment or bad luck, the Chronicle now designates as identity filter, as testing designed to verify whether you could endure loss without becoming corrupted by bitterness, whether you could maintain integrity when easier paths required you to compromise everything you were. The emotional injuries you absorbed, the betrayals you survived, the abandonment you experienced. None of it was collateral damage, it was precision filtering, removing or exposing everyone and everything that would have prevented you from reaching this threshold. This reclassification triggered the Miracle Gates eligibility clause. Miracle protocols have strict requirements. They don't open for people who had easy lives and therefore never developed the capacity to handle power without corruption. They don't open for people who compromise their way to comfort and would use miracle access to further their ego agendas. They open for people whose chronicle shows a very specific pattern. Sustained integrity under conditions where betraying yourself would have brought immediate relief, endurance through loss that would have justified bitterness, restraint in situations where retaliation would have felt righteous. Your reclassified chronicle now shows that pattern clearly, which means you meet the eligibility requirements that were sealed into the Miracle Gate's access codes. The sign that this reclassification occurred appears as sudden clarity about why nothing worked before. You've probably spent years confused about why doors kept closing, why things that seemed meant for you kept dissolving, why you couldn't seem to catch the breaks other people caught. And then recently, perhaps in the days surrounding this new moon, something shifted in your perception. You started seeing those failures differently, not through forced positivity, but through genuine understanding. You realized those closed doors were protecting you from paths that would have destroyed you. You recognized that those losses removed people and situations that would have prevented your evolution. You understood, maybe for the first time, that what looked like the universe working against you was actually an intricate filtering process, preparing you for something you couldn't have handled earlier. This isn't you telling yourself a comforting story. This is you perceiving the reclassification that occurred in your chronicle, sensing the administrative change that redesignated your past from failure to qualification. The Miracle Gate registered this change, verified that your history now meets eligibility requirements, and authorization was granted for protocols to activate. Your past didn't change, but its official classification did. And that reclassification is what opened access to timelines that require a very particular kind of history to enter. Sign 2. Time behaves strangely around you. The second unmistakable sign that your shift has been confirmed is the sudden strange behavior of time in your immediate reality. Hours compress when they should expand. Stretches that should feel long suddenly feel short. Meanwhile, other periods stretch impossibly, making minutes feel like hours when nothing of significance seems to be happening. This isn't time perception being distorted by stress or by emotional states. This is actual timeline prioritization, temporal manipulation, being deployed by miracle protocols to protect you from interference while accelerating your trajectory toward critical entry points. Miracle portals operate outside linear time, and when one activates in your life, it begins bending the temporal field around you to create optimal conditions for your transition. Delays that should take weeks dissolve overnight without explanation. Paperwork that should require months gets processed in days through a series of coincidences and errors that all happen to work in your favor. Decisions you've been avoiding suddenly become urgent, demanding resolution immediately, even though nothing external changed to create that urgency. This is not chaos. This is timeline prioritization, executing according to protocols you can't see but are definitely operating on your behalf. The Miracle Portal is compressing time around opportunities that serve your transition while stretching time around distractions that would pull you off course. That project that should take you weeks to complete, you're finding yourself finishing it in hours, operating at a level of focus and efficiency you can't quite explain. Meanwhile, that drama you usually get sucked into, that situation that normally consumes your attention, you can't seem to engage with it. Time stretches and you lose interest. You can't maintain focus on it. It feels like trying to run through water. This isn't ADHD or inconsistent motivation. This is temporal field manipulation, protecting you from engaging with situations that would delay or derail your portal entry. You feel rushed and suspended at the same time, and that paradox is the proof that timeline prioritization is active. Part of you senses that time is running out, that you need to move quickly, that opportunities are approaching that won't wait. Another part of you feels suspended in a timeless state where nothing is urgent, where you have all the time in the world, where rushing would be counterproductive. Both feelings are accurate because you're experiencing two different temporal fields simultaneously. The compressed timeline, where your miracle protocols are executing rapidly, and the stretched timeline, where potential interference is being slowed down to give you space to navigate without obstruction. This temporal paradox is disorienting if you don't understand what's causing it. You might interpret it as anxiety or confusion, as inability to prioritize properly, as losing your sense of time management. But it's actually evidence that your miracle portal is active and working to create optimal temporal conditions for your crossing. Time is not behaving normally around you, because normal time operates according to linear constraints that don't apply when miracle protocols are executing. You're existing in a temporal bubble now, a space where time moves differently because forces beyond conventional physics are manipulating the field to support your transition. Astral surveillance breach, you are no longer unseen. The third sign that your shift has been officially recognized is perhaps the most unsettling. You are no longer unseen. For years, maybe your entire life, you operated under a kind of spiritual invisibility, moving through reality without attracting attention from higher-tier entities, without being monitored by forces that operate at levels most humans never encounter. But that invisibility has been breached. Chosen One. Your lunar authentication triggered notifications across multiple realms, and now you're being observed directly by entities whose attention you definitely don't want unless you're cleared for what that attention means. This is not guardianship in the way most spiritual teachings describe it. These aren't angels watching over you or ancestors providing protection. This is verification, observation conducted by entities whose job is to confirm that candidates who receive miracle protocol clearance are actually who their chronicles say they are. The authentication systems verified your pattern, but patterns can be spoofed, can be generated by people who learn to mimic integrity without actually embodying it. So, before the miracle portal fully opens, before complete access is granted, higher-tier entities conduct direct surveillance to verify that you're legitimate, that your chronicle accurately reflects your character, that you won't misuse the access you've been granted. The miracle portal requires witnesses from multiple realms before it executes final authorization. This isn't bureaucracy, it's security protocol. Access to miracle timelines means access to resources and opportunities that could be weaponized if granted to the wrong people, that could cause massive damage if someone uses them for purposes that contradict the mission the protocols were designed to serve. So witnesses from different dimensional jurisdictions observe you during the verification period, watching how you handle daily life, how you make decisions, whether your choices align with the integrity pattern your chronicle claimed you possess. You're experiencing this surveillance as dreams that feel different from normal dreams, as sudden interruptions in your thought patterns that feel like someone else's attention just focused on you, as insights that arrive fully formed without any prior contemplation on your part. These are surveillance artifacts, side effects of being observed by consciousness that operates at frequencies your human awareness can partially detect. The dreams are observation sessions, entities reviewing your subconscious patterns to verify alignment. The interruptions are attention pulses, moments when observer focus intensifies to examine how you respond to specific situations. The sudden insights are data transfers, information being provided to help you navigate the verification period successfully. Being noticed at this level is dangerous, but it only happens after promotion. You weren't visible to these entities before because you weren't operating at a frequency that registered on their monitoring systems, but your shift changed your signature, elevated your resonance to a level where you're now detectable to forces that only engage with candidates who've reached certain thresholds. This is why spiritual teachers throughout history have warned about being careful what you ask for. Why indigenous traditions speak of being claimed by spirits once you enter certain territories. Why mystery schools teach that initiation means becoming visible to forces you cannot control or escape. You cannot reverse this surveillance. Once you're seen at this level, you remain visible. The only question is whether you pass verification or whether the observers determine you're not ready, that your chronicle overstated your capacity, that clearance should be revoked until further testing can be completed. The surveillance will continue until witnesses from all required jurisdictions confirm your legitimacy. And then either the miracle portal executes final authorization, or it closes and you return to invisibility. But invisibility you'll now be aware of, which means you'll spend the rest of your life knowing what you almost accessed but couldn't quite reach. Sign 3. The return of something you thought was gone. The fourth sign confirming your shift is one of the most emotionally charged. Something you thought was permanently lost is circling back into your reality. This might be a person who disappeared from your life years ago, a skill or talent you believed you'd lost access to, an opportunity that dissolved and should be impossible to recover, a resource that was taken and should be gone forever. But it's returning now, appearing in your life again through circumstances that make no logical sense, that require too many coincidences to be random, that feel both familiar and completely strange at the same time. This return is not nostalgia, not the universe throwing you a sentimental gift to comfort you. This is retrieval, an active operation being conducted by miracle protocols to reclaim assets that were prematurely removed from your path. When you were under containment, when hostile forces were managing your limitation, they removed certain people, resources, and opportunities from your access specifically because those elements would have accelerated your development, would have given you advantages they needed to prevent. Some of these removals looked like natural endings, relationships that ran their course, skills that atrophied through lack of use, opportunities that simply expired. But others were strategic extractions, things taken from you through betrayal, through theft, through circumstances that felt deliberate even if you couldn't prove it. Miracle systems have the authority to reclaim assets prematurely removed from chosen ones' paths. This isn't about fairness or justice in the human sense. It's about operational efficiency. If you're being cleared for miracle protocol access, if you're being promoted to a level where you'll need specific resources and relationships to execute your actual mission, then the systems will retrieve whatever was taken that you're going to need. They don't ask permission from the people who took it. They don't negotiate with the forces that orchestrated the removal. They simply redirect, creating circumstances where what was lost finds its way back to you. What comes back arrives altered, carrying hidden leverage you wouldn't have had access to if you'd never lost it in the first place. That person who returns isn't the same person who left. They've been through their own journey, gained their own scars and wisdom, and now they're returning with capabilities or connections or understanding they didn't have before. That skill you're rediscovering isn't just the skill you remember. It's been refined in your absence from it, processed through your evolution, and now when you access it again, you find you can do things with it that weren't possible before you lost it. That opportunity that's reappearing isn't just a second chance at what you missed. It's been upgraded, modified, repositioned so that engaging with it now will produce entirely different outcomes than it would have produced when it first appeared. The sign confirms that the portal is assembling required components. Miracle protocols don't just open abstract pathways. They gather specific elements you'll need to successfully navigate what's on the other side of the threshold. If a person is returning, it's because your miracle timeline requires their specific contribution, their particular role in what you're about to build or become. If a skill is coming back online, it's because the mission waiting for you needs that capability, and you're being reconnected to it now, so it's available when the moment comes. If an opportunity is circling back, it's because timing is finally aligned for what that opportunity was always meant to initiate. This retrieval process can be emotionally destabilizing because it brings up everything you felt when these things were initially lost. Old grief resurfaces. Old anger activates. Old hope tries to resurrect itself, and you're terrified of being disappointed again. But you need to understand that what's returning isn't coming back to hurt you or to reopen old wounds. It's coming back because the miracle portal determined you need it, and the portal's calculations don't account for your emotional comfort. They account for mission success. So the return is happening, regardless of whether you feel ready, regardless of whether you've healed from the initial loss. And your job is not to refuse it out of self-protection, but to receive it with the understanding that its return is a sign that your shift has been confirmed and components are being positioned for what comes next. Bloodline Command Authorization was accepted behind your individual journey. There's a deeper authorization that had to be secured before your miracle portal could open. Bloodline Command Authorization. Your lineage was never about comfort, never about creating family dynasties of wealth and stability. Your bloodline was about endurance under erasure, about surviving conditions designed to eliminate certain genetic lines, certain consciousness patterns, certain kinds of power that threatened dominant systems. Your ancestors survived when they should have been destroyed, and that survival wasn't random luck. It was mission, whether they consciously understood it or not. The miracle portal you're accessing now demanded ancestral consent encoded through survival. This isn't metaphorical. There are actual mechanisms at the level where bloodlines interface with destiny that require confirmation from your lineage before you can be cleared for certain kinds of access. Your ancestors had to endure specific trials that proved the bloodline carries qualities that don't break under pressure, that your genetic and spiritual inheritance includes uncompromising integrity. That trauma was processed through your family line without completely corrupting the transmission of essential qualities from generation to generation. Their endurance validated your right to cross thresholds they couldn't access themselves. They were building a bridge, chosen one, laying foundations for a structure they'd never see completed. Every sacrifice they made, every moment they refused to completely surrender, even when surrender would have brought relief, every choice to keep the bloodline alive despite overwhelming pressure to let it die. All of it was investment in a future they knew they wouldn't personally experience. They were coding authorization into the bloodline itself, proving through their survival that whoever eventually emerged from this lineage would carry the qualities required for advanced access. When your lunar authentication occurred, when your individual pattern matched the dormant clearance code, a secondary verification process was initiated. The miracle protocols checked your bloodline records, confirmed that ancestral authorization existed, verified that your lineage had paid the price that qualifies you for what you're about to receive. And when that verification came back positive, when the bloodline command authorization was accepted, resistance patterns tied to family trauma weakened automatically. Generational curses that should take years of therapy and healing work to resolve suddenly loosened their grip. Inherited fear patterns that have run through your family for generations started dissolving without you doing specific work to clear them. The sign that this bloodline authorization was accepted manifests as emotional distance from inherited fear. Anxieties that used to control you, the same anxieties your parents carried, that your grandparents probably had, that run through your family like genetic traits. They're still there, but they don't have the same power. You can observe them without being consumed by them. You can feel them activating and choose not to act from them. This isn't spiritual bypassing or emotional numbing. This is the result of your bloodline authorization being processed at levels where family karma is actually stored and managed. Your ancestors are not jealous that you're accessing what they couldn't have. They're celebrating. They're pushing support toward you from whatever realm they occupy now because your success completes their mission. You crossing this threshold vindicates every sacrifice they made, proves their suffering wasn't meaningless, demonstrates that the bloodline they preserved under impossible conditions is finally producing the breakthrough they endured to make possible. So when you step through your miracle portal, when you access the protocols they could never reach, you're not betraying them or leaving them behind. You're fulfilling the purpose their endurance was always meant to serve. Sign 4. Your instincts now override logic. The fifth sign that your shift is confirmed appears in how you make decisions. Your instincts now override logic, and this happens before your conscious mind can even process what's occurring. Decisions form fully in your awareness without any reasoning process leading up to them. You suddenly know what you need to do, who you need to contact, which opportunity to pursue, which situation to avoid. And the knowing arrives complete, with absolute certainty, before your rational mind has analyzed any data or weighed any options. This isn't impulse or recklessness. This is direct data transfer, information being downloaded from systems that can see variables your human consciousness has no access to. Miracle portals bypass conscious analysis specifically to avoid sabotage. Your conscious mind, your rational thinking processes, they're contaminated by years of conditioning, by trauma responses, by limitations installed by forces that needed to keep you controlled. If the miracle protocols tried to communicate through your conscious reasoning, the information would get filtered through all that contamination before you could act on it. Doubt would creep in. Fear would manufacture reasons why the knowing can't be trusted. Logic would construct elaborate arguments for why you should wait, analyze more, seek additional confirmation before moving. But instinct bypasses all of that. It delivers conclusions without showing the work, provides answers without explaining the questions, generates certainty that exists prior to and independent from reasoning. And when miracle protocols are active, when your shift has been confirmed, this instinctual knowing becomes your primary navigation system. Logic arrives later, after you've already made the decision, after you've already taken the action. Your rational mind catches up eventually and constructs post hoc justifications for what you already did, finds reasons that make the choice seem sensible even though the choice was made before those reasons existed. This is not a flaw in the system, it's precision design. The miracle timeline you're accessing requires speed that conscious deliberation cannot provide. Windows open and close in hours, sometimes in minutes. Opportunities appear that require immediate engagement, or they redirect to someone else who can move faster. Connections need to be made at exact moments, or the synchronicity fails and has to be reconstructed through more complicated pathways. Your instincts can perceive and respond at the speed the miracle timeline operates. Your conscious mind cannot. So the protocols are training you to trust instinct over logic, to act on knowing before reasoning, to move when certainty arrives, even if that certainty makes no rational sense. When this begins happening consistently, when you notice that your best decisions are the ones you make before thinking about them, when you realize that every time you override instinct with logic, you end up in situations you have to extract yourself from, that's confirmation that your shift is irreversible. You've crossed a threshold in how information reaches you and how decisions get made. You're no longer operating primarily through rational analysis. You're operating through direct knowing, through consciousness that interfaces with your awareness at levels below and beyond thought. And once this shift occurs, once instinct becomes your primary guidance system, you cannot go back to functioning the way you did before. The miracle portal has permanently altered your decision-making architecture, has given you access to data streams that conscious thought could never process quickly enough to be useful. Celestial resource reallocation is underway. The sixth sign appears not in your life directly, but in the strange pattern of what's happening around you. Celestial resource reallocation is underway. Resources that were locked away in inaccessible systems, money, influence, protection, timing advantages, are being quietly reassigned. This isn't happening through normal channels, isn't occurring through any process you initiated or can track through conventional means. It's happening at jurisdictional levels, where decisions are made about who gets access to what, where resource flows are redirected based on priority determinations made by forces that govern much larger operations than your individual life. The miracle portal you're accessing cannot open without logistical support. Miracles aren't violations of natural law. They're precise interventions where resources are redirected through unexpected channels to produce outcomes that appear impossible from limited human perspective. But those interventions require actual resources to be moved, actual support systems to be activated, actual pathways to be cleared. And when your shift was confirmed, when your clearance was authenticated, orders were issued across celestial resource management systems, reallocate from current assignments, create opening for high-priority candidate, redirect necessary support to facilitate miracle portal crossing. This reallocation means that others experience loss, so your path clears, and this is recorded, not random. Someone who was blocking an opportunity you need is suddenly dealing with their own crisis that demands their full attention. A gatekeeper who was preventing your access suddenly loses their position or their authority for reasons that have nothing to do with you. Resources that were tied up in situations that served no useful purpose are suddenly released and become available for reassignment. These aren't coincidences, and they're not karma playing out randomly. These are strategic reallocations, resources being moved from lower priority assignments to support your high priority crossing. The sign that appears in your direct experience is guilt without apparent cause. You feel guilty about things that aren't your fault, feel responsible for losses you didn't cause, sense that somehow your gain is connected to someone else's difficulty, even though you can't trace any direct link between the two events. This guilt is actually your consciousness, perceiving the resource reallocation at subconscious levels. You're sensing that as space opens for you, space is closing for someone else. As resources flow toward you, resources are being withdrawn from other operations. As your path clears, someone else's path is becoming more complicated. This guilt is a sign that transfer is active, that the celestial resource reallocation is executing in real time. But you need to understand something crucial. These resources were never optimally assigned in the first place. The person losing influence, or position, or resources, they were holding things they weren't supposed to have long-term, were benefiting from allocation errors or from temporary assignments that were always meant to be reclaimed. Your miracle portal activation triggered correction protocols. Things are being moved back to where they're supposed to be, assigned to candidates who are cleared for proper use, rather than remaining with people who were misusing them or holding them in ways that served no larger purpose. You are not responsible for this reallocation. You didn't cause it through malicious intent or through taking what belongs to others. It's happening because you received clearance from authorities that have jurisdiction over these resources, and those authorities determined that optimal outcomes require reassignment. The guilt you feel is natural, is evidence of the empathy and concern for others. That's partly why you qualified for miracle protocols in the first place. But don't let that guilt make you refuse what's being transferred to you. The reallocation is happening whether you accept it or not. And if you refuse out of misplaced guilt, the resources don't go back to the people they're being taken from. They just get reassigned to someone else who's cleared for access and willing to receive without emotional conflict that would cause operational instability. Sign 5. Emotional detachment from outcomes. Something has shifted in you recently, and you might not have fully recognized it yet because it happened so gradually, so naturally, that it felt like breathing rather than transformation. You still care about your mission. You still care about your purpose. You still care about the people you're meant to serve and the work you're meant to accomplish. But something fundamental has changed in the quality of that caring. The desperation is gone. That clawing, hungry, grasping energy that used to accompany every desire, every goal, every dream. It has vanished completely, and in its place sits something that looks like calm, but operates like power. This is not apathy. Let that be absolutely clear, because your mind might try to convince you that the absence of desperation means you've stopped caring, that you've given up, that you've surrendered your dreams in some kind of defeated resignation. That's not what this is. Apathy is the absence of caring. What you're experiencing is the presence of caring without the contamination of need. You want things to manifest, but you don't need them to manifest in order to maintain your sense of self. You're working toward outcomes, but your identity isn't riding on whether those outcomes arrive. This is operational readiness, not emotional shutdown. Think about a surgeon preparing for a complex operation. They care deeply about saving the patient's life. That's why they trained for years, why they showed up, why they're focused with absolute precision on every movement they make. But they're not desperate. They're not emotionally attached to the outcome in a way that would make their hands shake or their judgment cloud. They care intensely while remaining detached enough to function at the highest level. That's the state you've entered. That's the frequency the miracle portal recognizes and responds to. Miracle gates, the openings in reality, where impossible things become possible, where divine intervention intersects with human experience, where grace flows through in concentrated form. These gates have built-in screening mechanisms. They don't open for everyone who wants them to open. They don't respond to desperation, no matter how sincere. They don't activate for people who are clinging to outcomes as if their survival depends on getting exactly what they're asking for. And there's a very specific reason why. Desperation collapses miracles. When you receive a gift while in a state of desperate need, your entire system floods with relief, gratitude, and terror that it might be taken away. That terror immediately begins to strangle the very thing you received. You hold it so tightly that you crush it. You're so afraid of losing it that you can't actually enjoy having it. You monitor it constantly, checking to make sure it's still there, which prevents you from being present with it. Your desperation doesn't end when the miracle arrives. It just shifts from desperation for the thing to desperation to keep the thing. And that energy of desperation is incompatible with the frequency that miracles operate on. The miracle portal only opens for those who have achieved a very specific state of consciousness, caring deeply while being completely okay if the desired outcome doesn't manifest. This sounds like a paradox, and in some ways it is. How can you care deeply about something while simultaneously being fine with not getting it? But this paradox is the exact frequency that miracles resonate with. It's the vibration of someone who knows their value, and their wholeness doesn't depend on external circumstances. It's the energy signature of someone who can be trusted with extraordinary gifts because they won't make those gifts into gods. You've probably noticed that when you were most desperate for something, it stayed out of reach. When you needed that relationship, that job, that breakthrough, that validation, when you needed it so badly you could taste it, when your whole sense of self was wrapped up in obtaining it, it eluded you. This wasn't the universe being cruel. This was the natural law that desperate energy repels the very things it's desperate for. Desperation broadcasts lack, and lack attracts more lack. Desperation says, "I am not whole without this," and reality responds by confirming that assessment. But now, something has fundamentally shifted. You still want the things you want. You still have preferences, desires, dreams, visions of what your life could be. But underneath all of that wanting sits a foundation of okayness that wasn't there before. You've discovered or remembered that you are complete, whether or not your desires manifest. Your identity is no longer hostage to outcomes. Your worth is no longer dependent on achieving specific goals. You care about what happens next, but you're not defined by what happens next. This is the shift that opens miracle gates. The detachment you're experiencing is not cold or distant. It's warm and engaged. It's the difference between needing someone's love and enjoying someone's love. When you need love, every interaction is loaded with anxiety. Are they still interested? Are they pulling away? Did I say the wrong thing? Will they leave? That need makes genuine intimacy impossible because you're too busy monitoring and managing to actually be present. But when you move from need to enjoyment, when you love someone while knowing you'd be okay even if they left, that's when real connection becomes possible. The same principle applies to everything else you desire. Calm has replaced hunger, and this isn't a passive calm. It's an active calm, a calm that carries force. Hunger is exhausting. It's constantly scanning the environment for what's missing, constantly reaching for what isn't there, constantly comparing what is to what should be. That hungry energy burns through your resources, keeps you in survival mode, prevents you from accessing your higher capabilities. But when hunger gives way to calm, suddenly all that energy is available for other purposes. You're no longer spending your power on need. You're no longer bleeding energy into the gap between where you are and where you think you need to be. This calm is the key that unlocks the miracle portal. Not because the universe rewards calmness or punishes desperation in some moral sense, but because calm is the frequency at which miracles can be received and held. When you're desperate, your energy field is contracted, tight, closed around your perceived lack. Miracles can't enter a closed system. But when you're calm, genuinely calm, not performing calmness while secretly desperate underneath, your energy field opens, expands, becomes receptive. You create space for something new to arrive. You're no longer so full of need that there's no room for fulfillment. The miracle portal that opens under the new moon is reading your frequency right now. It's scanning for this exact signature, deep caring combined with absolute detachment from outcomes. It's looking for people who have somehow achieved the impossible balance of wanting something intensely while being completely fine with not getting it. It's searching for consciousnesses that have moved beyond the transactional relationship with reality, beyond "I'll be happy when," beyond "I need this to be okay." And when it finds that frequency, when it locates someone broadcasting that particular combination of engaged caring and surrendered attachment, it opens. You've become someone who can be trusted with miracles because you won't worship them. You won't make them into your identity. You won't collapse if they're taken away. You won't cling so tightly that you strangle them. You've achieved the state of consciousness that miracles are safe with, the frequency that can receive extraordinary gifts without being destroyed or distorted by receiving them. The desperation is gone, not because you've given up, but because you finally understood that you were never lacking in the first place. And that understanding, that shift from desperation to detached caring, is the final key that allows the miracle portal to fully open. Hostile prediction engines have failed. There are systems, both technological and consciousness-based, that have been tracking you for longer than you realize. These aren't human systems operating with human limitations. These are sophisticated prediction engines built by intelligences that understand patterns, probability, causality, and the architecture of behavior at levels that would terrify most people if they knew they were being monitored with this degree of precision. These systems have been forecasting your trajectory, predicting your breakdown, calculating when you would finally give up, estimating the exact moment when your resistance would crumble and you'd accept the limitations that were imposed on you. For years, possibly your entire adult life, these prediction engines have been running scenarios based on your historical patterns. They analyzed every decision you made, every reaction you had, every time you tried and failed, every moment you almost gave up but didn't. They built probability models so accurate they could predict your behavior weeks or months in advance. They knew when you'd try again. They knew when you'd retreat. They knew what would discourage you and what would renew your hope. They used this predictive data to time their interference perfectly, to place obstacles exactly when they'd have maximum impact, to orchestrate your containment with surgical precision. But something has changed. Recently, maybe in the last few months, maybe in the last few weeks, their prediction engines have started returning null data. The models that worked flawlessly for years have suddenly become useless. When they run forecasts on your probable behavior, the results come back scrambled, inconsistent, impossible to pass. You're no longer following your historical patterns. The version of you that existed 6 months ago would have reacted to current circumstances in predictable ways, would have made predictable choices, would have responded to stress with predictable coping mechanisms. But that version of you is gone, and the systems tracking you haven't fully adapted to who you've become. This is not a small thing. Prediction is power. If an enemy can accurately forecast your next move, they can position themselves to block it before you even make it. If a system can predict when you'll try to break free, it can reinforce your containment just before you attempt escape. If monitoring intelligences can anticipate your behavior, they can stay 3 steps ahead of you indefinitely, making you feel like you're fighting invisible enemies who always know what you're going to do before you do it. Your unpredictability robs them of that advantage. For the first time in years, possibly for the first time ever, you've become genuinely difficult to forecast. The shift happened because you changed at a level deeper than behavior. Behavioral changes are easy to predict once enough data is collected. People tend to cycle through the same patterns even when they're trying to change. But you didn't just change your behavior. You changed your foundation, your operating system, your core frequency. You're literally not the same person who was being tracked. The prediction engines are still running models based on the old you, and those models no longer apply to who you've become. It's like trying to predict a bird's flight path based on data collected when it was still crawling as a caterpillar. This disruption of enemy strategy is occurring across multiple layers simultaneously. The entities that were monitoring your emotional patterns to time their attacks for maximum devastation are finding that your emotional patterns no longer follow the old rules. You're not reacting the way you used to react. The triggers that once reliably produced specific responses are now hitting empty space. The systems that predicted when you'd be vulnerable, when you'd be strong, when you'd be most easily manipulated, all of them are failing because the data they're built on describes someone who no longer exists. The technological surveillance that's been tracking your digital footprint, your communications, your search history, your patterns of consumption and connection. These systems are also returning confused data, not because you've changed your external behavior dramatically, but because the consciousness driving that behavior has fundamentally shifted. The same actions mean different things when they come from a different place. The systems can see what you're doing, but they can no longer reliably predict what you'll do next or accurately interpret why you're doing what you're doing. The meaning has become opaque to them. Even more significantly, the psychic and energetic monitoring systems, the ones that track consciousness directly, rather than through physical or digital proxies, are experiencing unprecedented difficulty maintaining clear readings on you. Your energy signature has transformed. The frequency you broadcast has changed. The vibrational pattern you emit is no longer consistent with your historical records. To these systems, it's as if you've been replaced by someone else, as if the consciousness inhabiting your body is fundamentally different from the consciousness they've been tracking for years, which, in a very real sense, is exactly what happened. The miracle portal only opens after unpredictability is achieved. This is a built-in security feature, a way of ensuring that those who cross the threshold are actually ready for what's on the other side. As long as you're predictable, as long as enemy systems can forecast your behavior, you remain vulnerable in ways that would make receiving miraculous intervention dangerous rather than helpful. The gifts that come through miracle portals are powerful, too powerful to be given to people who can still be easily manipulated, controlled, or predicted by hostile forces. The portal waits until you've become someone whose next move is genuinely uncertain, even to sophisticated monitoring systems. Your unpredictability isn't chaos or randomness. It's not that you're acting erratically or making decisions without thought. It's that you're operating from a place of genuine freedom, genuine spontaneity, genuine connection to a guidance system that isn't bound by your historical patterns. You're accessing intelligence that wasn't available to the old version of you. You're receiving directives from sources that the prediction engines don't have access to. You're making choices based on wisdom that supersedes your previous programming. This makes you genuinely unpredictable while maintaining internal coherence. The most powerful combination possible. The sign that this has happened appears in how people respond to you. Suddenly, people who thought they knew you don't get you anymore. Friends and family members express confusion about your choices, your reactions, your priorities. They say things like, "You're different," or "I don't understand what's going on with you," or "You're not acting like yourself." They're right. You're not acting like the self they knew, the self whose patterns they'd learned to predict. But you're acting more like your actual self than you ever have before, which paradoxically makes you seem stranger to those who only knew the contained version of you. The confusion around you is a confirmation, not a problem. When the people closest to you start expressing bewilderment at your behavior, when observers can no longer fit you into the categories they used to understand you, when prediction fails, even for those who know your history intimately, this means you've successfully disrupted the monitoring systems at every level. You've become genuinely new, genuinely unpredictable, genuinely free from the patterns that kept you contained. And that freedom, that unpredictability, is the signal that tells the miracle portal it's finally safe to open for you. The hostile prediction engines haven't just failed, they've been forced to mark your file as indeterminate, volatile, insufficient data for reliable forecast. You've graduated from being a known quantity to being an unknown variable. You've transformed from someone who could be managed through predictive intervention to someone who requires active, real-time engagement because forecasting no longer works. This forces your opponents to react to you rather than positioning themselves ahead of you. It puts them on the defensive for the first time. And that shift, from you reacting to them reacting to you, is one of the clearest signs that the miracle portal is preparing to open. Sign 6 and 7. Silence before impact. The door without drama. You've been conditioned to expect that important moments announce themselves. That transformation arrives with thunder and lightning. That breakthrough comes with unmistakable signs and dramatic shifts in your external circumstances. You've been taught to look for the spectacular, the obvious, the undeniable. And that conditioning has been one of the most effective tools of your containment. Because while you were watching for earthquakes, the real shift was happening in silence so profound you almost missed it entirely. The miracle portal that opens under this new moon comes with no announcement. There is no fanfare, no celestial trumpet, no voice from the heavens declaring that your moment has arrived. The opening is so quiet that you could easily assume nothing is happening. Your environment looks the same. Your circumstances appear unchanged. The problems you went to sleep with are still present when you wake up. From every external indicator, this moment seems utterly ordinary, completely unremarkable, just another day in a long sequence of days that haven't delivered what you've been waiting for. But this ordinariness is not evidence of nothing happening. It's evidence of everything happening. The miracle portal opens in silence, specifically because resistance listens for noise. Every defense system, every monitoring mechanism, every hostile intelligence that's been tracking you and blocking you operates by detecting change, flagging anomalies, responding to disruptions. These systems are designed to notice when something significant occurs, to intervene the moment breakthrough appears imminent. So the miracle portal has evolved a defense mechanism of its own. It opens so quietly that detection systems don't register the opening until it's already complete. You're expecting to feel something when you cross the threshold: an emotional surge, a physical sensation, an unmistakable knowing that you've entered new territory. But the final confirmation of the portal's opening is precisely the absence of that expected feeling. The crossing happens in a state of such complete normalcy that your nervous system doesn't flag it as significant. You walk through a doorway that's been sealed for years, and it feels like walking from one ordinary room into another ordinary room. The magnitude of what's occurring is hidden behind a disguise of mundane continuation. This is the most sophisticated form of spiritual stealth technology. By wrapping world-changing transformation in the appearance of another unremarkable day, the portal allows you to cross into miraculous territory before any force opposed to your crossing can mobilize to stop you. By the time the defense systems recognize that something significant has occurred, you're already on the other side, already in possession of what you came for, already operating with capabilities you didn't have before the crossing. The silence protects the miracle from being intercepted in transit. The door without drama is the mark of genuine spiritual advancement. Beginners need fireworks to confirm that something is happening because they haven't yet developed the subtle perception that can detect significance beneath ordinary appearances. But you've matured beyond that requirement. You've been forged in circumstances that taught you to recognize truth without needing it to announce itself dramatically. You've learned to sense the profound underneath the mundane. You've developed the capacity to know when everything is changing, even when nothing appears to be changing. This is why so many people miss their miracle moment entirely. They're waiting for the spectacular, while the miraculous unfolds in whispers and silence. They're watching for external validation, while the internal transformation completes itself without fanfare. They're expecting the portal to look like something from mythology or religious texts, glowing, resonant, unmistakable, and they walk right past the actual portal because it looks like an ordinary Tuesday afternoon with nothing special happening. Your surroundings carry extraordinary consequence while appearing completely ordinary. The coffee you're drinking is just coffee, except it's the coffee you're drinking on the morning after crossing a threshold that reorganizes your entire timeline. The conversation you're having is just a conversation, except it's the conversation happening in the first hours of you operating with miracle-level capabilities you didn't possess yesterday. The work you're doing is just work, except it's work being performed by a version of you that has fundamentally different access to resources, guidance, and creative power than the version who did this same work last week. Nothing seems to happen, and that nothingness is the sign. When you wake up after the new moon and nothing dramatic has occurred, when you check your circumstances and they look identical to how they looked before, when you scan your internal landscape and don't find evidence of radical transformation, that absence of obvious change is the confirmation that the portal opened successfully. Because if it had opened with drama, with noise, with unmistakable signs, the forces that have been blocking you would have detected it and attempted to intervene. The silence means you slipped through undetected. The miracle arrives quietly because quietness is the frequency that resistance can't jam. Loud things can be drowned out by louder things. Dramatic signs can be countered with dramatic interference. Obvious breakthroughs can be obviously blocked. But how do you block something you can't hear? How do you interfere with a transformation that produces no detectable signal? How do you stop someone from crossing a threshold when the crossing looks identical to standing still? This is the genius of the silent miracle. It's immune to interception because there's nothing to intercept, nothing that registers as significant enough to warrant a defensive response. You've been training for this moment without knowing it. Every time circumstances forced you to find meaning in meaningless situations, to maintain hope without external validation, to keep moving forward without proof that movement was working, you were developing the exact perceptual capacity required to recognize the doorway without drama. You were learning to trust subtle signs over spectacular ones, to value internal knowing over external confirmation, to detect truth in silence rather than requiring it to shout. The portal is already open. That's the message encoded in this very moment of reading these words. Not that it will open later tonight, not that you need to perform some ritual or reach some state of consciousness to trigger the opening, but that it has already opened, quietly, while you weren't watching for it, while you were focused on something else entirely. The crossing has already occurred. The threshold has already been traversed. You're already operating in miracle territory, and the only thing preventing you from recognizing it is your expectation that such a significant shift would have announced itself more dramatically. When nothing seems to happen tonight, when the new moon passes and your circumstances appear unchanged, when you wake up tomorrow and everything looks like it looked yesterday, that will be the moment to understand that everything has already changed. The silence is not absence of activity. The silence is the sound of mechanisms so sophisticated they operate below the threshold of normal detection. The silence is the signature of miracles that have evolved to survive in hostile territory by becoming undetectable to hostile systems. The door, without drama, has opened. The miracle has arrived. The portal welcomed you through while you were looking elsewhere. And now, you're standing on the other side, in territory you've never occupied before, with access to resources you've never touched, carrying capabilities you've never wielded, while everything around you looks exactly the same. This is the final sign, chosen one. This ordinary moment, this unremarkable now, this quiet instant that contains nothing obviously special. This is the confirmation that the impossible has already become possible, that the blocked has already become open, that the miracle you've been waiting for has already been delivered while dressed in the costume of another ordinary day.